Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
This episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast with Austin Hatch is brought to you by Compassion International. Childhood, as we all know, should be full of exploration and learning and growth, but children in poverty are often focused simply on living day to day. Safe water, education, medical care, even safe housing can be substandard or in many ways even non-existent, and that results in malnutrition, child labor, abuse, hopelessness, poverty. It's such a vicious cycle. But through Compassion International, it can be broken. Over 66 years of experience, Compassion has found the most effective way to care for children in need is through the local church, and they partner with more than 7,000 local churches in 25 countries to deliver God's love and care to children in need, one child at a time. Today, more than 2 million children are breaking this cycle of poverty for good. This is your chance. This is my chance to help be a part of what's going on with Compassion International in releasing a child from poverty. It's $38 a month. For more information and to sponsor a child, go to compassion.com/sportspectrum, compassion.com/sportspectrum, and release a child from poverty today. Today on the podcast, we hear probably the most incredible story that you've ever heard on this podcast. And we've had a lot of incredible ones. And Austin Hatch is a survivor. He's a former Michigan Wolverines basketball player, and he's Abby's husband, as you'll hear at the end of the podcast and describing him. He is a speaker, and he works at the corporate offices with Domino's. But his story is incredible. Numerous media outlets, including The Athletic, NBC Nightly News, People Magazine, and ESPN, have told Austin's miraculous story. Faced with an incredible challenge, he responded with determination, with discipline, optimism, and most of all, faith in Jesus Christ, that God can still be good and use the circumstances that we all have happen to us in our lives to bring glory to his name. Austin is a survivor, a two-time plane crash survivor. In 2003, at the age of 8, Austin's mother, sister, and brother were tragically killed in a plane crash that Austin was also a part of with his father. 8 years later, with many hours of hard work, the 6'6" basketball phenom was offered a college scholarship from his dream school at the University of Michigan. And just 9 days later, June 24th, 2011, Austin would be aboard a plane with his father and, as he calls it, his second mother, his stepmother. And this plane would go down as well. It killed both of his parents, his dad and his second mom, and left Austin in a coma with severe injuries, including traumatic brain injury. But Austin survived, and not only survived, but has thrived and has told his story to so many different people in making a difference and understanding that God can still be glorified and understanding that there is hope, that there is purpose in the pain. This is an incredible journey here. And I'm grateful and honored to have Austin Hatch from Michigan joining us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Take a listen. Austin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you, Austin. We met in person a few weeks ago at the Final Four in Minneapolis, where you were up there helping to introduce Coach John Beilein as the winner of the Wooden Award. I always let's just start with your faith, I think. Tell us about, because your faith is so important to you, and I know you don't get a chance probably to open up and talk about it as much as maybe you would like, depending on who's asking you the questions, and that's part of the reason why we wanted to have you here on the podcast. Tell us about what you believe, that faith that you have, and maybe where it took shape for you.
Yeah, well, I believe, of course, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and obviously, I've lost a tremendous amount in my life, tragically.
Yeah.
But we're all so lucky and blessed to have our faith, for those who believe, and that's kind of a rock we can lean on. When things are going well, you can give glory to God and stuff like that, of course. But especially when things get tough, that's that's something you can lean on. And I found that to be very important for me, obviously, with all I've been through. I've had that, what's the song, Christ the solid rock I stand, all the ground is sinking sand, right? So, yeah. So, and Matthew 7 talks about, how, if we hear the words of Christ and put them into practice, we're like wise men, right? Who build their houses on rock. So, I think that's, but if we just hear the words and don't put them into practice, we're like foolish men who build their houses on sand. And, yeah, I think that basically says it all. That was the conclusion of the Sermon on the Mount, right? And so there you go. That's basically arguably the most important sermon of his ministry. Maybe not the most important, but one of the most well known. He concludes by saying, all this stuff you hear in me, it's if you believe, you just reading it and it's not enough. You got to live it out. So. I think it's very important to have faith, and it's been a big component of my recovery for sure.
Where did it start for you? Did you grow up in a family of faith? Did you go to church? Was that constant for you as you were just growing up because you were so young when the first accident happened, and we'll talk about both accidents in a second. But then even more just as you're growing up and, having this life to live as an adolescent and so many things shaping the way that you are, was faith a part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was brought up in a Christian home. I was raised Catholic.
Yep.
And then, then when the first accident happened in 2003, and tragically lost my mom and my siblings. And then when my dad was remarried, and a couple years later, we just began going to a more of a Christian, non-denominational church, and so it's it's always been a part of my life, and my dad made sure that it stayed a part of my life even after things happened the first time. So it's big. I don't know where I'd be without it.
I've heard you say that your dream, that word dream is a big word, I think, in a lot of ways, but your dream was to play basketball at Michigan, which you were able to accomplish. Tell me about that dream and when it started to take shape. You always played basketball, I presume, when you were younger?
Oh, yep, always. I was always in the gym, always in the driveway playing basketball with my friends and my dad, and I started to get pretty good, and I was working really hard at my game, with extra training and weight training and skill development, things like that. And, and things got to, I was making good progress, and Coach Beyond came to watch me play, and I played a really good game. Probably the best game of my high school career, when he was there, which was nice. And, and then after he saw that, he, decided to offer me a scholarship. So, it was a dream come true.
Did you ever struggle with identity as a basketball player? We talk a lot to young Christian athletes about identity and just getting caught up in what they do versus who they are and who God calls them to be. Did you struggle with that at all? Even though you were having this really great success during your high school career, did you struggle with identity?
No, not really, because I never identified myself as a basketball player. Obviously I was a basketball player, but I didn't, that wasn't the first thing I told people. I didn't meet someone and say, "Hi, my name is Austin Hatch. I'm really good at basketball," or whatever. Right. And, I think that you got to have so much more to, kind of hang your hat on, so to speak. And I think that, I even back then, and especially now, I want to be multidimensional, right? And, start by having, great faith. And, if I was good at sports, I was good at sports, or basketball, I was good at basketball, whatever it was. But, I think that, we can't have all our eggs in one basket, so to speak. And that maybe this kind of gets away from your question. But I didn't want to identify as a basketball player. That's what I did. And that's what I was good at, but that's not who I was. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And I think that's very wise for a young person to recognize that, because I'm around a lot of young people. My daughter's in high school, a teenage girl playing sports, and, she's grew up in the church, and yet it's very hard for her to pull away from the identity issues that she goes through on a day-to-day basis. So I thought that was very poignant on your part to be able to have that. Did being a part of church and even going through the accident that you went through just before your 9th birthday and losing your mom and your sister and your brother, did that help shape that identity in Christ, and even not just in Christ, but just in not the things you do, but in who you are?
I don't know that I don't want to say the accident helped me. Yeah. I think that, I would have developed a strong sense of character and this, had my identity in Christ whether that accident happened or tragically it did. I wish with all my heart that it didn't. Right. And I think I would have turned out similarly had that not happened. But yeah, it really just put things into perspective that, it's not things that you think are permanent. I mean, it's obviously, most people, you hope and pray that, your family's permanent, but, but I learned early on that, life can happen. And, I believe obviously it's really tough not having them here. And, my mom, my sister, brother, dad, second mom, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe I'll see them again someday. And, I'm just doing my best to honor them by how I live my life, how I love my wife, how I treat people, how I approach challenges, and how I live every day. And I think that, I do believe they have a way of some sort of like they're looking down on me, right, watching me, and they're kind of, I think they can maybe this is not true, or maybe this isn't how it is in heaven, but yeah. I feel like they can see the way I'm doing things, and or they somehow know. And I look forward to the day. I got a lot more work to do, but in 70 years from now, I look forward to the day, get to have a joyful reunion, see them again. So
yeah, absolutely. This may be a really dumb question. I apologize if it offends you in any way. I'm not trying to ask it from an offensive perspective, but
no.
Is it possible that what you went through the first time, first of all, just to go through one accident like this is unbelievable. To go through it a second time is just unfathomable. Is it possible that when you went through this first plane crash in 2003, you were younger, obviously, but did it help prepare you? This is why I get weird even saying it like this, to recover and to move forward when the second accident happened. As you were older, you were you were 16 at the time, 16. The second accident. Did that help prepare you at all to kind of go through it? You know what I'm asking here?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. And it's not a weird question. I mean, I understand. And I think that, so the first time, tragically, lost my mom and my siblings, but, my dad was there, and he kind of showed me the way. Right. Of how to overcome it, and of how to overcome something like that, and how to respond to that kind of adversity. And I saw he kind of set an example of, not obviously he didn't, this isn't what he said literally, but it's kind of the way he did things, showed me a template that I could use to follow. Because he's kind of like, hey, Austin, pay attention really close to what I'm doing, because you're going to have to do this on your own in 7 years or 8 years. And yeah, obviously, he didn't say that, of course, but I watched his every move, and just because that's what you do when you're 9 years old, right?
Yeah.
And you watch your dad's every move, and tragically, I got to see how to respond to something like that, and also tragically, I had to do it again on my own. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't know it's not documented often about what injuries you suffered in the first plane crash. Did you suffer injuries? I presume you did at 9 years old.
Yeah. And I was just burnt really bad on my arms and my hands.
Okay.
And because my dad threw me out of the plane pretty quickly, to save my life. And then he went back in to get my mom and siblings, and went back into the flames, and and was tragically unable to, but it was was burned very severely. So,
but you have memories of of all of that, I presume, whereas the second plane crash, you almost died yourself, and you were in a coma and lots of injuries there. And maybe is the memory a little more cloudy in the second accident than the first?
Yeah, I don't remember anything from the second accident. I don't remember probably a month leading up to the second accident because like my head injury was so bad and I was knocked out, and I really, like, for example, so I committed to Michigan on June 15th at 1:45 in the afternoon.
Yep.
The accident happened 9 days later. I don't remember committing to Michigan. I remember I've seen the footage of me committing, and so that, like, then I kind of remember it, you know.
Yeah.
But if you ask me of something that I haven't seen on, like, film dozens of times since then, I wouldn't remember. So
what was the recovery like? I mean, obviously the memory isn't there, and that's hard, but you had to, like, learn and to walk and even talk again, correct?
Yeah. Learn, walk, talk, eat.
How hard was that?
Take care of it. Yeah, it was tough. It was tough, right? But I approached it the same way that I approached getting better at basketball. Obviously, I was pretty good, but I had a long road ahead of me. A lot of work to do to get ready to play at Michigan, and I was working my hardest to get to be the best basketball player I could be. And then the accident happened, and I just kind of shifted my focus to, okay, now let's work as hard as we can to make the best recovery from a traumatic brain injury that has ever been made in the history of recoveries from traumatic brain injuries, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just shifted my focus from I approached it with the same mentality as I approached everything. I mean, working to be the best basketball player I could be, doing my best in school, whatever it may be. Okay, now I just got to do my best to recover from this. And yeah, it was different, obviously, but I approached with the same mentality. And I think that if we approach things with a mentality that we can overcome anything we put our minds to, and if we're willing to do the work, I don't think there's anything we can't overcome.
Austin Hatch is our guest here on Sports Spectrum's podcast. Did you allow yourself to grieve at all? Because it sounds like once you're coming out of the coma and you're trying to learn how to walk and talk again, you're just focused on recovery and just trying to live again. But is there moments there, maybe even further after that, maybe even still to this day, that you've had to allow yourself to just grieve like a normal person who had to go through loss?
Yeah. I never really grieved so much. I mean, obviously it's really, really tough, and I've been, of course, very sad that my family's not here. But yeah, like you said, for having to focus so much and having so much work to do to get back on my feet, so to speak, and having to learn how to walk and talk and eat and live and do everything. That not that I didn't have time to think about them or to grieve. Of course, I think about them every day, but and I kind of realized that they're gone. And of course there were days when it was when it would sink in a little more and it'd be really tough, right? But I'm not saying I never grieved, but I kind of realized that I got so much work to do, and I just got to focus on that and focus on getting better, and honoring my family. And, obviously I'm not saying it's not normal to grieve or you shouldn't grieve. I grieved.
Sure.
But I had the unique circumstances of having so much work to do to get myself better. I think that took away, not took away, but that, gave me something else to focus on.
Yeah.
And not only had I not been injured at all and only had to focus on the loss, it would have been a lot different. But
I wonder, because grief is different for everybody too, right? Everybody's process of grief is different. But now that you've been going out and sharing and talking about your story to so many people, speaking and impacting so many people's lives, I'm sure you've had people come up to you and say, I went through this with my situation, whether it was a tragic accident or losing a loved one unexpectedly. How has your story and how have you seen your story impact those who are going through something similar?
Yeah, well, I think that, I've been blessed to have the opportunity to speak, a lot, and share my story to companies, organizations, schools, churches, whoever it may be. And, I think that if, obviously everyone's got challenges of their own, and I don't think we have any business comparing our challenges or our struggles to the struggles of other people. But I think because, it's people will say after I speak, maybe they're like, oh man, look what you overcame, man. I'm just dealing with this little thing. And it's like, just totally, derailing me from, and I'm like, you know what? Like, adversity is adversity, right? And, I think that, the encouraging thing for people, when they hear me speak and they see my story is that, kind of, man, if this guy can do it, why can't I? Sort of thing. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be in a position to be impactful and to make a difference in people's lives. And I feel obviously the story is tragic and awful, but I've been blessed that we've been able to turn an obvious negative into a positive and use it to help others.
Do you ever get tired of talking about it though? And I don't mean that in a bad way, obviously, because I have stories just like everybody else does that we've all gone through, and I try to share my story to help people. But there's some days where I'm just like, I just don't want to talk about this today. Is that something ever kind of crosses your mind or you go through?
Yeah, a little bit, but I get that it's a big part of my life. I won't say it's who I am, but it's
sure.
But it's a big part of my life, and that's how a lot of people know me. And of course, I want to be known for more than just the kid who survived 2 plane crashes and lost his entire immediate family. Of course, I want to be known for more than that. And I'm doing my best every day to, build my brand and make let people know that it's not about what happens to us; it's about how we respond. And I think that it does get, sometimes there, like you said, there are some days where you just don't feel like talking about it. But I also feel that, I am in a very, very, very unique position, right? And I feel, obviously I've lost a lot, but I feel like I've been given an extraordinary opportunity too. And, kind of the whole thing, to whom much has been given, much is expected. And not that I am saying I've been given a lot because of my story. Obviously, I've lost a lot too, but here's an opportunity to inspire other people. Here's an opportunity to build, to grow the kingdom, right? And so
that's good stuff there. Last couple of questions here with Austin Hatch on the podcast. I want to talk about just the Michigan experience for you a little bit. Obviously, it's not the basketball experience that you were thinking it would be when you committed 9 days before the second accident, but you still had a pretty awesome experience at Michigan. It was senior day 2018 when they honored you, and you committed in 2011. So there's 7 years of just life and experiences and the journey that you went through. Tell me about Michigan and just that experience of going through what you went through and still being able to come out on the other end, having not only played basketball with Michigan, but also going through meeting your wife and just the experience of being there as a Wolverine.
Yeah. So it's Michigan's an absolutely incredible place, and I wouldn't trade my experiences for anything. It was a dream come true to be a part of the basketball program. Obviously, in a different role than I originally hoped. But you look at Coach Beilein. I mean, you talk about a man of integrity. You talk about a man of character, a man of faith, a man of. I mean, that guy is one of the best I've ever met, one of the best ever. And I mean, you talk about following through on your commitment to someone, following through on your commitment to something. When he offered me a scholarship, and how easy would it have been for him to, use my spot on the team for someone else that could have actually helped the team, like on the court. I mean, I'd like to think I helped the team in different ways than I originally intended. But, I mean, you talk about I don't think it's an accident that, I committed to a place like Michigan led by a man like John Beilein 9 days before everything happened. And I'm not saying that other coaches across the country wouldn't have done something very similar. They probably would have. But I mean, he's incredible. And, as much as I talk about how amazing my experiences were, and, how it was a dream come true and everything. I'm not surprised at all, though.
Why is that?
Because it's Coach Beeline is just, it's just the way he is. Like, the kind of guy that, goes the extra mile for people that he cares about, for people that he's leading, and he doesn't view his team as just basketball players. He invests in us and helps us become better people, better men. And, I think the lessons he taught us, it'll help for me. I can already tell you, I mean, some things I've learned from him, have helped me be a better husband and will someday help me be a better father. And I mean, I'm not going to stand here and say that, like a father, like my dad, but I mean, really, it's almost like a father figure. I mean, when you spend that much time with someone over your college years and you're really preparing for the rest of your life, I mean, he makes a big impact on you. And as I said, I'm sure a lot of coaches are. The other guy, I don't know many other coaches, but I'm sure they're most of them, do the right thing when no one's looking, always, have integrity. But you see, I mean, in the news, there's a lot of stuff going on in the NCAA, a lot of shortcuts, a lot of people trying to cheat the system and stuff. And coach said, like an example he gave at the John Wooden Award ceremony, he's talking about, if you got a certain amount of time to practice and their NCAA sets rules about how much time you practice, if you practice for 2 hours, practice ends at 2 hours. It doesn't go 2 hours and 15 minutes. It ends at 2 hours. And that's just a really small example. But just always having that integrity and coaching with it and leading with it. And, when the head coach, when the leader sets that example, it permeates throughout the whole organization. So, I'm just extremely grateful for my time at Michigan, and meeting my wife was, of course, incredible. And, my time with the basketball team was amazing. My time as a student at the university was amazing. And, why not just put a little cherry on top and meet the girl of your dreams, the love of your life. So
that's great. Yeah. What's marriage taught you? You've been married now a short time or so, almost a year, I believe. What's marriage taught you?
Yeah. What has it taught me? Well, what hasn't it taught me?
Good answer.
It's taught me that my wife is amazing, and even more than I thought. And she's incredible, and I can't wait to build our future and build our own family, someday. And sometimes, what I learned from Coach Beeline, one of the ways I could help the team was to unload the luggage on road trips, right? And you get the bags from the buses to the plane and from the plane to the buses. That's how I could help. I wish I could play and score and rebound, but if I could help the team by doing that, then I'm going to do it, right? And there are some things that, that I have to do that I'm not always thrilled about when I get home from work, but you know what? If that's what the team needs, that's what the team needs, right? So, and I think like I said, the lessons I learned at Michigan are still with me to this day, and they will be for years to come. And I know other people that have gone through Coach Beeline's programs feel the exact same way. So,
what's your last? I have two more questions for you here. Last two questions for you here, Austin, on the podcast. What's your definition of success? I'm curious to know, with all you've went through, how you would define success.
Well, I would define success the way my dad defined it. And he was a doctor, was very successful and did well and things like that. But he and people in my family obviously admired him. And they asked him why he thought he was successful. And I was pretty young at the time, so I didn't really have the whole understanding of, business and success and work. But he said, I think I'm a success because I'm loved by my family and my friends. I'm admired by my peers, and because I consistently use my God-given talents constructively to improve civilization. And I think that, that's what it's about. Our family is first, right? God's first. Our family is a close second. Obviously, we want to be respected and admired by, them as well as our friends. And want to be admired, want to do things that earn the respect of others. And, I think we're doing things to help other people that'll earn the respect of others, right? And then lastly, if we're doing things to make the world a better place, I think that's success. And I also think that going along with that, you got to become the best of which you're capable, right? Like for me, obviously, a successful career at Michigan would have been different had I not experienced the injuries that I did. If I only scored, had the accident not happened and I only scored one official point at Michigan, that probably wouldn't be defined as a successful career, right? But I think that given the circumstances, I think we did the best to become the best of which we were capable. And yeah, I think that if you work to be the best you can, if you do your best and to become the best, I mean, I don't think people can judge you for the outcome so much, as long as you have, put the time in and worked as hard as you can to be the best you can be. So
that's a great definition. Austin, last question here. What are you learning today from the Lord? What is God teaching you in the season of life that you're in right now? And maybe share not only how God is moving on you, but what you're doing right now. What is happening since graduating a year ago, kind of some of the things you're doing, and then the lesson that you're learning from the Lord in the season of life he has you in.
Yeah, well, right now, so I work in the corporate office at Domino's, Pete's company in Ann Arbor, and I also do a fair amount of public speaking, share my story with other people, and hopefully inspire, motivate, whatever you want to say. And I think right now it's just, I think what I think about is, there's the seasons, right? It says the season for everything,
yeah.
And this season, this stage of going through, our first year of marriage, coming up on a year, and how he's using that to prepare us for the next stage, which will be starting a family of our own. And I think that he some little things, some big things, he's preparing us, and it'll happen in his timing. And when he said, it's almost like he's saying, you guys aren't ready yet. You're getting there, but you're not ready yet. And so just trust in him, and things will fall into place at the right time. So yeah, we're very blessed to have the life that we do, and blessed to I know I'm blessed to be Abby's husband. And I think she would say she's blessed to be my wife too, most of the time.
Well, I think that's the best title you can have. Forget public speaker or former Michigan Wolverines basketball player. It's Abby's husband, Austin
Abby's
Hatch.
husband.
That's it.
Yeah.
Austin, this has been great. Thanks so much for being here on the podcast. And I know if anybody wants to get in touch with you for speaking or anything like that, the best way to do it is probably hit you up on Twitter, I would think, at AustinHatch30. And then there's an email there in his bio that you can email if you want to bring him in and have him share his story with your audience. But just appreciate your time, Austin, and wish you nothing but the best. Thanks so much, my friend.
Oh, of course. Thank you very much for having me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
And many thanks to Austin Hatch for joining us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. What an inspiration. I mean, just the outlook that this guy can have on life is so encouraging, knowing what he's lost in his life, losing his mom, his dad, his second mom, his brother, his sister, all tragically in plane crashes at very young ages. Just an incredible inspiration. And I'm just grateful that he was willing to come on the podcast and talk so openly and share what God has done in his life, the good and the bad, in shaping him, informing him, and bringing him to where he is today as a man of faith and as Abby's husband, as he mentioned. And just grateful to have Austin here on the podcast. Again, you can check him out on Twitter at AustinHatch30, at AustinHatch30. If you want to bring him in and inquire about having him come and speak with your company, with your conference, wherever it might be, maybe it's at a church, he has a message to share and the purpose and the pain that he's gone through. And I think it's important to give him that opportunity, knowing that he can make a difference for the kingdom. So if you're interested in having him speak, you can tweet at him, or you can even just reach me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com, and I'd be happy to point you to reaching Austin and how to set up an opportunity to have him come and speak and share with your company or church or business or whatever it might be. Maybe it's a conference. So also want to make a note, and many thanks to Austin for being here on the podcast. We taped this a couple weeks ago, and literally 2 days ago, this podcast being released May 15th. On Monday, May 13th, his former coach, John Beilein, who we talked about on this podcast, took a job and signed a new contract to come to the NBA and be the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Signed a 5-year deal. So that's a really great opportunity for him to move on from Michigan, and the difference in the impact that he made on those lives of those kids at Michigan was felt through the answers and the words that Austin Hatch had to say about Coach John Beilein. But I wanted to at least acknowledge John Beilein going to Cleveland and the fact that we taped this interview before that news had come around, but at least acknowledging that, now that we're releasing this interview, we know that John Beilein will become the next head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Thanks to Austin for joining us here on the podcast. We also want to thank our sponsors, Compassion International, making a lasting impact and a huge dent in releasing children from poverty. I love what they stand for. Christ-focused, over 2 million children known, loved, and protected because of Compassion International. 7,000 plus church partners in 25 countries. It's $38 a month. It's such a vicious cycle, but it can be broken. Here's your opportunity to do that. Go to compassion.com/sportspectrum. Compassion.com/sportspectrum. Release a child from poverty and sponsor them today. We want to thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. If this is the first time that you've heard the Sports Spectrum podcast, welcome. We're so glad that you found us. We're so glad that you're listening and took the time out to check out our interview with Austin Hatch. Do us a favor, click that subscribe button on the podcast app that you're listening to this interview on. Never miss an episode. We've had over 300 episodes of the Sports Spectrum podcast, almost 300 episodes, I should say, and we don't want you to miss any of them. There's so many great interviews and stories that have been told here. We want you to go back and listen to as many of those as possible. It can really be an encouragement for you, for a friend, for a family member, for someone who's seeking, trying to figure out this whole faith life, this whole faith journey. So definitely click that subscribe button. Never miss an episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast. We also want to encourage all listeners, encourage all of you to check out sportspectrum.com. Bookmark that website. Visit there every day because we have daily devotionals at 6 a.m. Eastern. We have daily content being updated, articles on the stories and the athletes in the intersection of sports and faith. And of course, every podcast can be found there as well. We also want to encourage you to subscribe to our magazine. It's $18. It's a quarterly magazine, 4 times a year. You also get a couple bonus issues and a welcome magazine welcoming you into the Sports Spectrum family when you subscribe. It's $18. It's cheap. $18 for the whole year. What a deal. Check it out, sportspectrum.com, and subscribe today. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. We love you guys. Have a great rest of your day. This is the Sports Spectrum podcast. See you soon.